gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
So Ana Kasparian's new Grift has been revealed, finally. It's been a long political journey for Ana Kasparian. I've covered for a little while now that, what everybody already knew, that her perspective was becoming increasingly right-wing. But I think the more accurate way to say it is that she increasingly felt that the right position for her politically, the right place for her to exist in the ecosystem is for her to still be somewhat left-wing. She still holds some left-wing beliefs. I want to be clear about that. But she feels the need to push to the right in her perspective, meaning she wants to push back against the left. She wants to push back against the radical or max left, as her and Cenk like to call it. And she views herself as a firebrand, not pushing to the left, not pushing for left-wing positions, but pushing against the left and trying to get as many people on the left as she can to embrace more right-wing positions is what seems like her goal. And she's been on this for a while. It started with this whole thing about birthing persons, where she said in some clinic or something that she was referred to not as a woman, but as a birthing person. And this led her to tweet about it and basically go on a Twitter spiral about how not only does she personally not want to be referred to as a birthing person, and she thought that was weird, but she viewed this as a tipping point that pushed her over the edge into wanting to be more combative and confrontational towards the left. And many people have pointed out that that's not necessarily the start of her right-wing or reactionary impulse. And you could argue that this arc has been happening for a long time. And probably what happened there with the birthing person thing is she thought that was her moment. That was the opportunity where she was like, I've had enough. And this is a reason that I can take. This is something that I can grab onto and say publicly is the reason that I'm kind of breaking from the left. And ever since that moment, people have been speculating that the why I left the left moment was inevitable. And while this that is happening right now isn't quite that yet, at least as of what we know now, I haven't. This episode of this show that she's going to be doing with Jillian Michaels and others has not dropped yet. It will later today. We'll see if I cover it. There's going to be other stuff to cover today that I'm probably going to opt for instead. And there's a real question about that for me, how much I want to cover this show specifically. Because, like I said, the other shoe has dropped, and this is what people kind of expected to happen in many ways. Not just that it's like Ana Kasparian is taking a more explicitly right-wing perspective, but it seemed pretty clear for a while that she was looking for a different job, looking for a job in an environment that was more right-wing, frankly. I think the thing that has become the most clear about Ana is that she seems to feel more comfortable around people who are more right-wing. And she seems to feel increasingly uncomfortable around people who are left-wing. And that has caused her to fight with many of friends that she has and isolate herself from a community that she had built on the left wing. And, that has been the thing that has jumped out to me the most, whether it was the way she chose to go about debating Ben Shapiro, or when the Young Turks had on Lindy Lee not that long ago, who was a former Democratic operative who is now a Republican operative who literally switched sides and, quote, left the left. She's also on this show. And Lindy Lee's a little bit different because I think the Grift is a little bit more explicit with her, where she was a Democrat before and she was, gallivanting with all of the rich people that are associated with the Democratic Party, you know, so everything that is posh and out of touch about the Democratic Party, Lindy Lee was a part of that, and then she decided to switch sides. She, for whatever reason, decided that the donor class of the Democratic Party was no longer who she wanted to be associated with, and she would rather be associated with the donor class of the right wing, the Republican Party. So that is like, that's different from Ana Kasparian, who is in a more nuanced position. I guess that's not quite the right word I'm looking for, but she's in a position where, you know, she was never like a part of the Democratic Party. She was always left of the Democratic Party. And you could argue in some ways she still is left of the Democratic Party, except for the fact that she has taken the bait on all of these culture war issues. And so that has positioned her, again, with people who are to the right of the Democratic Party and firmly in the Republican Party. So let me play this clip real quick before I ramble for too long here, and then we'll get into the details of who all these people are, what this project is probably going to be, and why Ana Kasparian is doing this, as well as, you know, I want to get your guys' perspective on what you think of this and whether you think this show in particular is worth covering going forward. I imagine there will be clips from it or moments that are worth covering for this and that reason, but we'll get into that in a moment. So check out this trailer at the risk of promoting this horrible looking show. Check out this trailer and then we'll talk about it.
Welcome to Her Take, where real conversation happens.
Let me just take a step back and ask a broader question. I'm actually with Trump on this. It's one of the reasons why I left the Democratic Party.
Let's talk about the mistake, though, Lindy. Let's talk about the mistake for a second, okay? He had a legitimate asylum claim.
Intersex, pansexual, two-spirit. What the heck is a two-spirit?
Give it to me in English and then dumb it down to 6th grade level.
I wake up in the morning and I have no spirit, so I'm are they really marginalized?
Can I borrow one?
Like,
Jeez.
I will be the first one to say that birth control destroyed my life.
The goal is to create lifelong medical patients because that is passive residual income for them every week, every month till the end of that person's life.
you've got real conversations that happen here. Different voices collide, clash, and sometimes even connect. There are no scripts, no echo chambers, and just smart and spirited debates. Ladies, are you ready to jump in?
Let's do
ready?
this.
So there you have it. So the main host of this program is Jillian Michaels, former TV star and host of the show called The Biggest Loser that had to do with weight loss. And she has always been in that kind of corner of entertainment where she's talking about whatever, alternative medicine and health. And for some reason, health and being interested in that primarily seems to lead a lot of people down a right-wing path. And I think part of the reason is that diet is something that is very, very hard to have any type of empirical data about. It's very hard to get empirical data about, you know, how people's diet affects their health. And so that leaves a lot of room open for grifters, but it also makes it so that people who are interested in that subject go down a lot of weird paths, because various grifters that have come up with the theory of health, the theory that is going to reveal to you all of the lies of the US health system, and then that, you know, cause, whether it's like Jordan Peterson's all beef diet or Jillian Michaels, you know, or like Gwyneth Paltrow style goop and like alternative homeopathic stuff, you know, all of it is there's some value there. Some of those products can be valuable, and it doesn't automatically make you right wing to be interested in different kinds of medicines. It doesn't even make you right wing to be opposed to the pharmaceutical industry and to think that there is a conspiracy to make the health of Americans worse. I don't think that that's an inherently right-wing position, but it inevitably leads people down a right-wing path, probably because the right wing is more open to alternative and just straight up inaccurate information. And so that information multiplies and thrives in right-wing spaces, where on the whether it's the Democratic Party or just more left of center side of the spectrum, there's a little bit more scrutiny of stuff like that. People are less open to embracing, weird alternative health solutions and medicines and stuff like that. So Jillian Michaels kind of comes from that world. She was working underneath Bill Maher and his Club Random podcast. I don't really understand the whole podcast network thing. I don't really understand how that works. I guess it's just a way of making a larger network of podcasts that are all under the same roof. I don't know, something else that I don't understand about this, and maybe this is uncouth of me to say, forgive me, this might be a little bit like 2013 coded or something, but isn't it kind of weird that these like brave truth-telling women who want to like blaze their own path are constantly working underneath men? Like, I don't know, doesn't it make more sense to like make your own platform? All of these women, except the one Amy Dangerfield, all of these women have some type of name. If they had their own podcast, it would do fine. I feel like it's just laziness, because I mean, there's no easier kind of content to produce than a podcast. You don't need some funder, some fat cat like Patrick Bet-David, who this new show is underneath. So this new show is under Valuetainment, which is owned by Patrick Bet-David, and it's a part of that podcast network. And, Ana Kasparian obviously comes from the Young Turks. She hasn't explicitly left them yet. Probably depends on how well this does. And if there's going to be more mainstream appeal to this platform than what she gets on the Young Turks. I imagine that's what Ana feels suffocated by. She feels that her new right-wing positioning has more mainstream appeal right now. And so she wants a show that is going to give her to a broader audience of people. That's why she's gone on Megyn Kelly. That's why she's talked to Jillian Michaels. She wants to have a larger mainstream appeal, whether or not it's attached to any type of left-wing ethic. She doesn't seem to care about that, because on this show, what I predict is that she's going to be the left-wing flank on this program, similar to on Fox News, how they have Jessica Tarlov as one of the hosts of The Five. I imagine that Ana Kasparian fancies that she is going to be the left-wing perspective on this show. She's going to argue with Lindy Lee. She's going to argue with Jillian Michaels from the left-wing perspective, but also probably going to mostly agree with them. And for sure, this show is aimed at a more right-wing audience. There's no doubt about that. This is supposed to be the conservative answer to The View, which is how Lindy Lee described it. So the other thing I'm not quite sure of is if this is going to be the same panel every time. It seems like it. I suppose they could have a different panel, but it seems like the idea is that these four women are going to be consistently doing this show, discussing politics. And so if you look at it from a demographic perspective and from like a what's the point? What message are you trying to deliver to what audience? It's clear that this is aimed at a conservative female audience. That's who they're trying to reach. That's who Jillian Michaels reaches. Valuetainment is very clearly aimed at a right-wing audience. And so now they have this group of women who are going to be trying to expand that right-wing audience into a little bit more of a female fan base. And again, this is something that a lot of these quote-unquote podcast networks do, is they create like this is the girl show. We're going to have three girls that talk. This is girl talk, and it's like, that's fine. We need girl talk. We need, female hosts out here having these conversations. That's totally fine. I just don't understand why it has to be under a company that a man owns. It just seems weird to me. It seems contradictory to the point. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having a boss who's a man or a woman, or I don't really care about that sort of thing. But it seems to me that like Ana Kasparian's main issue, the thing that she's flailing and complaining about all the time, is that she works underneath the boss. She's sort of under the thumb of this project that Cenk Uygur has created, and she feels suffocated by it. And so I just don't really get why you would move to another platform that is run by a man. This guy's more right-wing than Cenk Uygur is. So clearly she wants to go in that direction. And like I said, she's more comfortable in a right-wing environment than she is in a left-wing environment. I think she feels that working for Cenk Uygur and constantly being exposed to a left-wing audience means that she's constantly exposed to a lot of criticism. She is going in this right-wing direction, and she's constantly embattled and called names over that, like grifter. People are not taking her at face value in her positions, as they shouldn't, because people on the left are very, very used to this why I left the left grift. Many people have tried it, and, you know, thankfully there are programs like the Majority Report that, like, you know, give a voice to the idea that these are fake left-wing positions that only exist to give way to right-wing positions. It's a very effective form of psyop, and the only thing that tamps down the effectiveness is having people on the left who call it what it is. So, like I've said before, I think Cenk Uygur's platform is a lot more, it still, in many ways, is left of center. And even though Cenk seems to be trying to appeal more and more to the right, the best example is Palestine. Both Cenk and Ana have vociferously argued for Palestine. That's not the position you take if you're trying to just like shamelessly make money. It's also not the position you take if you're trying to shamelessly appeal to the right. So that is something to keep in mind, that like there's probably some principle there, or at least a desire to take an honest position on that issue. And Cenk Uygur has a platform that is still aimed at affecting left-wing change, some kind of populist change. They've rebranded it to this populist thing, and that is Cenk's project as the moment, is to run a PAC that is able to, you know, prop up populist politicians in the Democratic Party. And so Ana seems to be done with Democrats and the left wing overall. She does not want anything to do with any left wing position, is what it seems like. Except for, like I said, she's probably going to continue making arguments to that effect. But again, this is the equivalent of being Jessica Tarlov and working on Fox News. She's working at a right-wing outlet that has a right-wing audience, and she serves the purpose of being the left-wing voice on that program. And I think that there is some value to that. Potentially. I don't really know. It's been something that I've been thinking about covering for a while, Jessica Tarlov, and like, you know, she makes some pretty solid points on the Five that, you know, a lot of the right-wing people in that audience simply would never hear if it wasn't for somebody like that working on the program. So do I have much respect for her for working for that program? No, I don't. But I do think that there's some value to that, maybe. It just depends on how good you are at actually expressing the left-wing position, because if you're presenting a cartoonish or bullshit version of a left-wing position on Fox News or on Valuetainment, then all you're doing is feeding more fuel to the fire of people who hate left-wing positions without actually exposing them to left-wing positions. So I can understand that for Ana, this is potentially an opportunity to share her more left-wing positions on, you know, on a program that's aimed more at right-wingers. But you have to ask yourself, why is she more comfortable in that environment? And also, why is she just like taking a job? There seems to be this desire in independent media for people who are just looking for a job somewhere. And it's like, that's kind of incompatible with like solid left-wing commentary. Like if you're trying to do real left-wing commentary, or even like not left-wing commentary, but like independent, you know, stuff that is not beholden to mainstream narratives or business-friendly narratives, you got to do it on your own. And so Ana's making this move. It's entirely possible that she's more comfortable with right-wingers in general, and that's why she's doing it. But I think probably she's going to be just as uncomfortable in that environment as she is anywhere else, because ultimately she's under the thumb of right-wingers. And while she might be more comfortable working with right-wingers, I just don't think this is going to solve the problem that she feels she has. But maybe her snarky, obnoxious perspective will be more at home here. And look, maybe she's not going to take a left-wing perspective on this stuff. Maybe she's going to be, you know, explicitly right-wing, down the middle, and she's taking this opportunity to just work with a bunch of right-wingers and agree with them all the time and start pushing that narrative. I think that's going to happen more and more, but I think mostly what we're going to see is Ana Kasparian taking a left-wing position on this show, for the most part, taking the leftmost position on this show, which, keep in mind, when it comes to trans people, homeless people, crime, things like that, Ana Kasparian has a very reactionary perspective, and she's going to be airing that out over and over again, and she's probably going to be met with nothing but agreement on this show. So my question to you guys is, when it comes to this show going forward, do you think this is worth covering? Is this the end of the story here? Are we good on Ana Kasparian? Like, everybody saw this coming, now we finally have some substantiation. I imagine clips are going to come from this show. Maybe they're not. Maybe this is going to be a dud. I don't know that people are particularly interested in any of these figures necessarily. Probably the reason Ana hasn't started her own platform is because she wasn't able to build an audience in doing so. But, you know, I mean, what I use this podcast to do is take figures who are doing commentary and use them as an excuse to talk about the issues that I really want to talk about. And it's a method that mostly works. However, the more I focus on talking about people, the more that's what I'm talking about and not the issues that I'm trying to get to. In other words, you know, talking about this show in general, I'm just talking about these characters, and there's no issue to discuss here. So as clips come out of this show, they're going to be discussing issues, and that may create opportunities for me to talk about whatever the issue is that they're talking about and push back on their narratives or whatever. So, you know, I mean, I'll probably try to keep it minimal because I don't particularly like talking about Ana Kasparian that much. However, you know, I guess it just depends on relevancy, and it depends on if that's what you guys want. Because if we're done with Ana Kasparian at this point and we kind of just want to leave this show to flounder on its own, that's considerable. But if you guys are largely against me continuing to cover it, then maybe I won't. If you guys want to hear more stuff about what they're saying and want me to use that as an opportunity to refute their points, then I'll consider that as well. So let me know what you think. But yeah, to everybody who predicted that Ana Kasparian was inevitably going to do a leave the left thing, here we are, and I can only imagine that her commentary on this program is going to be even worse than we think. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and if you really want to support, consider becoming a member. That's the best way to support this channel. Posting all kinds of content there, like book reviews, movie reviews, music. If you like the beats that play in the back of these podcasts, all of that's posted there, plus my EPs. I just dropped a new EP called Dead Internet Theory that's available on all streaming platforms, and that was available first for members only. So if you want access to that, become a member, and if there's other stuff that you'd like to see as members only content, let me know and we'll figure some things out.